Or if our lives were a business, we would measure our metrics and have a business review, which is like a dedicated space to focus on improving that sort of thing. Like, where's our dedicated space in our lives to just take time for us to be like, how do we want to grow? Because that space matters.
Let's go! Welcome to Becoming an Epic Being with your host, Sukoon. As an advocate of conscious living, my mission is to help you young adults navigate through the confronting issues of your generation, question conventional beliefs, and choose authenticity, because that is where your true joy lies. Each week, I dive into raw conversations with inspiring guests who have undergone big shifts and are here to offer you the tools to do the same. So get ready to step up your game and jump on the ride as you begin the journey towards the next stage of your self-evolution. Okay, so today we're diving into all things growth and development and career prospects and how having the right support system facilitates that. And joining me is Lexy Franklin, who is the founder and CEO of Sidebar, which is this really cool virtual platform and leadership program that accelerates your career through small peer groups. Before becoming a founder, Lexi was at Meta, where he was leading product, and that experience of being exposed to such a fast paced environment with super smart people who yet had no way or no structured way to learn skills from one another is what led to the birth of Sidebar. This episode deconstructs the power of learning, having an open mind, and how being at the right place with the right people can be everything you need to go where you want to in life.
But I'm
Yeah,
so honored to be here with you. I'm so
no,
energized. I'm like a big
I
fan,
love it.
and
Yeah.
I just want to be the best guest ever. So whatever I can do to
Oh,
be helpful, I'm in.
well, I'm a big fan of Sidebar because I mean, what you've built, Lexi, is bloody brilliant. Like honestly, because the entire construct from the get-go is about like, I've got your back. Like everyone is so freaking supportive and friendly, and that makes a world of difference. Like it makes all the difference you need.
Well, I think that that's everything, right? Like we're all up to stuff that's so big in the world, and it can feel like we're
Yeah,
the only person there. But like when you have those
exactly.
people around you who are just so smart, they're so driven, they really want to
Yeah,
help. It's just like, wait, I
yeah.
got this. Like what maybe seemed insurmountable the day before, like all of a sudden seems possible. Like you're so brilliant. Can you imagine how lucky people are to have you helping them? It's like pretty good.
Appreciate that. No, because entire construct's very conducive to literally like connection. Everyone you hire in terms of the people who onboard you, your sales guys, your facilitators, like they actually are invested in your growth. And that's, I think, what from my experience distinguishes you from other masterminds out there.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. We really care. Like, I mean, I want
Yeah.
everyone to just go get what they want in the world, And
Yeah.
so I think it's really important, and the team is so inspiring. Like I would do
Yeah.
any job on this team. It's just like I'm very
Yeah.
honored to be around anyone. What's so interesting to me about Sidebar is that we go through our lives with this like really constrained view on our like on the potential of the world, right? So like in my mind,
Mm.
like as example for us, like there's no doubt that I have so much to learn from you, and so much like you have so much like work experience to share,
Oh, no.
but like we wouldn't have gotten to meet each other without a
Yeah.
simple twist of fate. And so that's why I think Sidebar is so awesome. Is like here we were in these different places, both like blossoming, but not realizing that we could really help each other go get what we want, sort of thing. And that's like what excites me the most is like
Yeah.
I've always been really
Ditto.
interested in this idea that the world kind of exists simultaneously. Like right now I'm
Mm.
in San Diego, but
Which I
it
love, by the way. I love your city. Oh my God. The best vibe, the warmest people. I love San Diego. It's such a nice vibe.
it's the best. It's so energizing.
Yeah.
People are so kind here, and the weather is just it's so
Yeah.
beautiful, and it's just it kind of takes your breath away sometimes. And so, but what I
Yeah.
think is so interesting is like there's still people who are today at the Trevi Fountain in Rome, right? It's probably like later in the day, but they're there. Like there's people who are like on the beach in Costa Rica. Like the world happens simultaneously, and I think that what's so interesting about it is that oh my gosh, there's people all around the world who just want to be great at what they do. Like they're so energized,
Exactly.
they're so passionate, they're so focused. And if we can connect those people to each other, if you really can tap into your peers, it's just a completely different experience.
Exactly. And speaking of, like every great business has been built by filling a gap or fulfilling a need. What
Yeah.
was missing in your own life that you noticed that inspired you to start Sidebar?
Yeah, so I think that, when I was at Meta or Facebook, but now it's called Meta,
Hmm.
like I was just
Hmm.
surrounded by the smartest people. Like these people were so brilliant and I was just so honored to like be a part of them. Like I just was like, "Oh my gosh, these are like I just want to be more like everyone around me," sort of thing. And when I first joined the company, my first question was like, okay, I was a new product manager, and I was like, great. Like, when do we get to jam with all the other product managers? Like, when do we get to learn from each other?
Yeah.
And that's actually like really hard in a company like that
Mm.
because you're moving so fast. It makes so much sense, right? There's so much to do. You're moving so quickly. There's so much work. Everyone's doing their own thing. And so that
Yes.
idea of kind of being able to really like collaborate all the time and like learn the craft was hard to achieve. Like someone you would like
Mm.
see someone do something and they would throw like 100-mile-an-hour fastball. You're like, wait, that's amazing. Hey, you're incredible. But B is like, how do you do that? Like I kind of want to
Yeah.
learn that sort of thing. And that ability to learn that was just really hard in such a fast-paced environment. And that was before the pandemic. Now it's 10x harder. It's like I was surrounded by all these brilliant people, but there wasn't really time to talk about like how did you do that to break it down to learn like a new like tool in my
Mm.
toolbox. It all was about me just pattern matching and kind of learning on the fly, which was awesome. But there's just a missed opportunity, I think, from
Yeah.
being able to be like, hey, here's this problem that I'm having that I would love to get your advice on, or I'd love to understand this, or this would be really helpful. And I think that that was before the pandemic, and now it's just 10x harder to do that. And so that
Yeah.
idea of the power of peers, like to really learn from your peers, because there's people around us all the time who have the work experience that we're looking for, sort of thing. So much of, I think, when you're really smart and you're growing really fast and you're just working really hard, like you get a new problem and you're like, I got this. I'm going to solve this. Like I'm the first person who's ever experienced it. But that's this like very inefficient way to solve it, sort of thing. If I'm a
Yeah.
new manager and I'm trying to figure out how to lead, like I'm not the first person to ever be a new manager. There's a lot of people around me who I really trust who know what they're doing. And so I think that trying to tap into that and learn from each other
Mm.
is just the superpower that felt so evident.
I agree. So, like great minds, but just less time, like limited time to share ideas, insights, resources, whatever. Because life is so, I'm sure, like so much more faster at Meta. So I can
Yeah,
imagine what
it's
you're
just so
talking about.
quickly, right? It's just like, like Sidebar is defined by these small groups of peers, right? 8 to 10
Yeah.
people, with
The person board of
experts.
directors, right? That's what you call them.
Exactly. Your personal board of directors. And it's focused on outcomes over networking, right? And so
Mm.
one of the things that we talk about that's really important is like, there's a lot of different types of communities out there, sort of thing. And we kind of compare, we kind of think about like a lot of those different types of communities as networks. And we really think of Sidebar as a program and not a network. And networks have benefits, but programs have outcomes. So like one really good analogy to think about this is that it's the difference between a gym and a personal trainer. So a gym
Mm.
is actually like an amazing place. Like it's awesome. Like you can go there anytime. They have really nice equipment. It's kind of incredible. But on the flip side, like the gym is actually like it's completely
Yeah.
self-autonomous. Like you could go there anytime, but like I haven't done push-ups like consistently for a really long time. Like it's on me. Versus a personal trainer is really different. A personal trainer knows your goals. There's social accountability. You're working towards like an end state, sort of thing. It's both the time and the structure in order to
Yeah.
go accomplish that goal. And we think that focusing on outcomes is the key. Like that's the big differentiator, and that's what really matters.
So you're obviously pretty big on group accountability and social accountability from what you've created
Yeah,
and what you believe in.
I'm a huge fan of social accountability. And I there's a story I'll tell. I learned this at Meta. So
Yeah.
we used to do these stand-ups every day I Meta on the growth team that, and again, everyone's just so brilliant, right? Like I'm just like honored to be there. And you would go around the room and be like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm Lexi. I'm going to get this done by Wednesday at 11 a.m. And you would tell
Yeah.
everybody, like this whole group, which is the last thing you wanted to do was let any of these people down. Like I admired them all so much. And so I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to get my thing done by Wednesday at 11. And then, Wednesday at noon comes around and they go like, hey, did you get your thing
That's
done
so
by Wednesday?
confronting. My God, doing
Wednesday
stand
at
up, my
11. And like, you only didn't do it like once because you're just like, oh, like, I don't want to do this. So I think the power of peers is really important, right? Because peers encourage us, peers challenge us, peers hold us
yeah,
accountable, right? There's just this incredible thing that happens when you're surrounded by this personal board of directors.
sure. I read one of your quotes online where you said something like, "Nothing in life gets you further than learning from your peers." And I was like, wow, that is so true. So, how has peer support shaped your own life?
Oh, in every way possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you kind of think about where, like, how does someone get to where we are, right? And there's this like beautiful image that we use a lot, which is like, it takes a village. But like, oh my
Mm,
gosh, nothing was ever truer uh, in my own lived experience than that statement. Like, I'm just a product of so many people in my life from when I was so young to
you're so
now
lucky.
who've just
Yeah.
taken so much time and so much care to help me or teach me something or spend extra time with me or
Mm,
explain something. And there's just so many different examples, right? Whether it's in school and just all the teachers who just like helped me so much, like learn a new thing or get unstuck or feel a certain way. It's, in high school, it's like studying with all your friends and trying to learn things and figure it out. There's this amazing moment when I was at Stanford where, I was really into the humanities and I was taking a philosophy class for the first time. And this brilliant student in my dorm, I was in this philosophy class and I was clearly in over my head. My first, I don't think I'd ever not done well with paper in my life. And I like just consistent, like one after another. I think I got this like not great grade on my first paper. And the teacher said, I'm never going to forget this. It was about Socrates. And I was used to just like coming up with my own ideas and these own theses. And the teacher was like, we've been studying Socrates for like 1,000 years. Like, if you have a unique idea on Socrates, it's probably wrong. And I was like, yeah, I'm not in the right class.
I
and this
love
and this and this amazing person, I was
Yeah.
studying for the final, just trying to pass the class. And I walked by him in the dorm and was like, oh, like, yeah, I was studying for this final. And like, we talked about one of the answers. And I realized that I've been studying for 50 hours, the complete wrong thing. Like, I just was like, I just couldn't have been less prepared for this final that was coming up in 3 days. And for 2 days, we sat in the library and he just helped me and just taught it to me. Not because it helped him, because I clearly was like the less intelligent one of us, sort of thing, but just because that's like who he was. And there's just hundreds of examples like that, of like at these moments of fulcrums when I don't know, when I'm stuck, just so many people, so many peers coming out of the woodwork, starting a company, right? Like, what does that even mean? What does that look like? What are the pieces? I'm a first time founder. So many of my friends were just there from the very beginning. So like, not only are there so many examples to your point, but like, I just wouldn't be here without my peers.
Mm,
And I think that saying all of that, with all of that, I still think it's probably an underutilized resource in my life. Like, I still think I probably should ask for help more. I still think that getting diverse perspectives is like the fastest way to getting a great answer. And so
100%.
even with that knowledge, like, I just want more. I want to do it more, sort of thing. And that's really where a lot of Sidebar came from.
Man, I like envy you so much because one of my biggest regrets in life has been never having a mentor. Like school messed me up, awful
Yeah.
teachers.
Yeah.
University, yeah, whatever, didn't really have anyone to connect with. And I've just like missed that whole experience to grow and to learn from someone who I can look up to. And hopefully Sidebar hopefully will solve that for me at some point. I'm not sure. But
Yeah, I think it
yeah,
will, right? And I think, and like, I really appreciate you saying that, because that's
yeah,
what I feel is like, so much of it is luck, right? None of that was
yeah.
earned on my
In the
part.
right place with the right
I just got
people. Yes.
lucky, I just was lucky that I
Mm,
had great teachers, but I equally could have been in a different spot. And that's what we really want to do in Sidebar. In order to create this personal board of directors, like, if you're on your own, you have to get really lucky, right? You have to meet the right people. You have to
mm.
bring them in your life.
Yeah,
Like, that could take 15 years. And we just were like,
exactly.
wait, your career is something that is so important. Like, it's kind
Yeah.
of stressful to leave it only up to luck, right? To leave it only up to a simple twist of fate. Like, we wanted to put the weight on the scale a little bit more so you could just find those people, get them, and kind of get that network already built in.
So it's really about intentionality, like creating that in your system with the right people and the right platform.
I think intentionality is a huge part of it because I think
Yeah.
that, and for, someone like you who's so on fire and like just like growing so quickly and all the things you're doing, like when we're growing really fast, like we're in this time of transition consistently where it just
Mm.
feels like, oh my gosh, uh, it's changing all the time in a good way, right? That's like what I think growing and getting more successful, at least has felt like, in my experience. And in those time of transitions, that's when you want to talk to your peers. When you're trying to
Yeah.
deliver value at the same level that we always have, but we maybe don't know the answer as well, or it's new for us. I'm like, oh yeah, like,
True.
well, what do you think? Like, have you seen this before? Like, what would you do? And I just think that like getting that insight is really powerful. I'll tell one anecdote. One of our investors has been around, the best CEOs, kind of like just the best of the best. And he said
Hmm.
this thing to me that I thought was really powerful, which he said is the most confident CEOs, like they're always asking questions. Like they're always asking people what they think because they just want all the information. And then they're very
True.
confident that they will go make the right answer, or make the right decision that will lead to the right answer. But I thought that that concept of like getting as much feedback, as much input as possible as a place of confidence was this really interesting juxtaposition because
Yeah.
there's one frame where if you already know the answer, like you should just go and do it sort of thing, but it's actually no, you want to kind of challenge your perspective, you want to get as much diversity in thought as possible, you want to get all the inputs as you can, and then know that you won't that you'll make the right decision. And so that's one of the reasons I really like Sidebar. I was in a group yesterday, and it was awesome. Like everyone was just getting all these different insights and like perspectives, and you're like, wait, this is like incredible information that would be really hard to get anywhere else.
I love that so much because being a know it all will only take you so far in life. And the ones who do make it to the top are actually the ones who have a very open mind and welcome challenge and diverse perspectives. And success for them is inevitable if they're open to learning from other people. So, yeah, I love what you said there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I totally agree with what you said, and it's like that
Yeah.
openness is like such an amazing
So
thing
important.
that we can also foster in each other, right? Like there's this like
Yeah.
it's like the brilliance, like like your lights up my curiosity too, right? It's like it's contagious. Like when someone comes into the
Yeah.
room or you're around a friend and they're just curious and they're like, oh, what about this? Or this is really interesting. And I think this is like I think about this a lot because when we were growing up, we were curious about everything. We're just like, oh, like
Yeah.
why does this work this way? Or that's kind of interesting. Like we literally went to school every day to learn something brand new. That was like our
Exactly.
day in every subject. So like six
Yeah.
to eight things, we learned something brand new. How do we keep that up as adults?
Yeah, I'm even in the corporate world, in the corporate space, like it's about detaching from titles and being a lifelong curious learner. That's where the real game is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, tell me about that. Like, what do you see? Like, how do you think about like that detachment and like fostering that?
I think I haven't been to San Francisco yet, but I'm sure it's more prevalent there than India because Indians are very hierarchical, authoritative people. Like they believe
Yeah.
in titles and seniority. Of course, it's changing now with the new startup culture and there's a lot of young energy there. But legacy businesses, like, oh my God, there's so much of this, baggage around. Like, I've like done so much. Like this is, my space and I know more than you because I'm senior or I have more gray hair or whatever. And that changing that mindset culturally takes its own toll. Workplaces that have like older people who are just very reluctant towards change doesn't really help, but they could do with some sidebar
Yeah.
sessions or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I think one of the most powerful lessons um that I've learned is just like how prevalent change is in work.
Yes.
That it's not
Yes.
something to like avoid. It's kind of an
Yeah.
inevitability. Like, you know, there's like so many member stories about change. Like we had a member
Mhm.
who they were actually refining their pitch to solicit more clients at a conference, right? And they were super excited to get more
Mhm.
clients. Their big goal for the year was to get one more client. So that was like the change that they were trying to get. And
Yeah.
after the conference, they got 7 more client opportunities and 10 more like
Wow.
follow-up sessions. Like it just like was so much better than they ever could have imagined.
Power of showing up.
it's just showing up, right? And just the confidence to have that from the group. Or we had another one who decided to leave their job after 15 years to like be an entrepreneur, right? We've had people who were entrepreneurs, and they're like, no, I want to go back into the corporate world. And how do we think about that? We had a member who kind of felt like they'd reached a ceiling in their career as a director, right? We hear this a lot where you're just like, you're just kind of at a director and you're kind of like at the level, you're like, what do I do? And they felt like they couldn't reach the next level as their VP, but they worked with their group. Um, and they were able to, they ultimately went through a layoff process, and then they were able to work with their group through that whole thing. And then they were able to land a VP job just a few months later. Like there just is so much kind of in transition here. And I think having the support of peers is really impactful and important.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I want to like revisit accountability again because
Yeah.
I know it's very powerful, but I also wonder, like, from a behavioral perspective, if someone doesn't feel accountable intrinsically, how sustainable and how long lasting is group or social accountability if they aren't inspired to show up for themselves from within? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I think it's really important. And I think that like there's a couple interesting like tensions that you're talking about in there sort of thing. Cause there's also like that desire to like, where are you showing up like as yourself sort of thing. And I think that the sidebar, like anything, is like the more you put in, the more you get out. Like, we
Yeah.
really talk about people showing up and doing the work, right? Like really kind of, going after what they want. I mean, and so I think that that's like one truth. But I think there's a second truth, which is just there's an incredible power of peers in a group. And so, just by kind of showing up to the group, regardless of kind of where you're at on a day-to-day basis, like just the act of arriving has its own power. So there's this really interesting statistic is that we remember 10% of what we read, 20% of what we hear, but 90% of what we learn in a small group setting. Like there's just
Wow.
this power in attending and in arriving and in showing up. And so I
Yeah.
think that these groups have this amazing anti-fragile quality to them, which is there's just a power of saying what you're feeling about your job and what you want and
Yeah, for
accomplishing your
sure.
goals
That container is very, very key. Yeah, I agree.
to others who care about you and who want you to go get it, sort of thing. So I think
Yeah.
that you get so much value from just that. And then, of course, there's that accountability. But I think that there's this big change that we see in Sidebar, which is I think over time in your group, there's this realization, which I know I realized, which is that, oh my gosh, wait, I'm showing up for myself, but I'm also showing up for everyone else too, sort of thing. Like I really
Mm,
care about what's going on with you and where you're at, and you just brought, in this
yeah.
example, like a recent problems group. I'm like, oh, I know you're having that conversation this week. What's going on? Like I'm not just showing up just for me. I'm showing up for the group, and I'm showing up for like what we stand for and kind of what this belief of us being there for each other to get
Mm,
better. My dad's
true.
been in his own group for about 40 years. And when we first were talking about Sidebar, we talked to him and we're like, how do you show up for 40 years? It's a really long time. And he was like, well, my commitment is to everyone else. Like I'm not even showing up for me, even though the groups really helped me. I'm showing
Wow.
up for everyone
That's
else,
smart.
sort of thing. And I just
Yeah.
thought that that was such a powerful image of across 40 years, across
Mm,
a large part of a lifetime, to just be like, I'm there because my group needs me, like they're counting on my insight, sort of thing. And I think that that's one of the biggest surprises, biggest insights, biggest joys of this Sidebar work has been, I didn't realize how much helping others was going to be a essential part of the value. Like there's so much value from bringing in a problem and getting that solution and getting unblocked, right? But
underrated.
there's equal, if not more, value of getting to use your insight, getting to use your work knowledge to unblock someone else so effortlessly. It just feels so good.
100%. I really agree with that. And I was going to ask you, community has become this really big buzzword in the world these days, and everyone's dropping it left, right, center. But what do you think makes the best communities tick? Like, what's happening in the background? And I mean, what do you make of this from your experience of working at Meta and all these companies?
I think communities become really powerful when you can find your people, when you're able to just be like, wait, these people are like me, and they can come from all these diverse places and all these diverse backgrounds, but they have these like shared interests, right? These shared desires, like these shared passions, like this shared way of wanting to learn in life. And I think that my experience has been building platforms that allow people to find each other and connect is this incredibly powerful thing. And that really, there's so much that goes into the platform design, but a lot of it is actually not over designing it and not over engineering it, and just, allowing allowing people to find each other and making that as easy as possible,
Yeah.
who are on similar paths and similar journeys and have similar interests. Like, as an example, I uh, I love surfing. Like, I grew up surfing. I
Oh,
love
wow.
surfing, sort of thing. It's like makes me so happy. It feels like you're flying. And I've made all of these friends over the last decade just through surfing, just through like surfing, meeting people, finding other people who love to surf. Like, when they're in town, we'll go surf together, or when I go visit them, we'll go surf together. We talk all the time, and like we care about each other and we're in each other's lives. But a large part of my community just came from this passion of, I just love the sea. It just makes me really happy,
Yeah.
sort of thing. And it's
A
not,
shared
I don't,
goal and shared passion. Yeah.
it's just like a shared passion, sort of thing. And I think that in Sidebar, what we found is that shared passion, which is, there's just like, it's that growth mindset. It's just wanting to get better at whatever we're doing. It's just
Yeah.
wanting to learn. It's just wanting, like, I mean, I'm honored to talk with you. I love talking with you the whole day because there's so many things that I want to learn from you. I would say that I, I think that the Sidebar mentality also goes hand in hand with um, this idea of a longer time horizon. So I think a lot of times in work, we just like want something tomorrow, right? We want to be amazing
Yeah.
tomorrow, sort of thing. But I think that
Yes.
when you see the shared passion of the Sidebar community, everyone in Sidebar is going to be super successful. They already are. They're on fire. Sidebar is just going to help them get there faster, right? And over the time horizon, like, how much can we learn from each other in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? Like, what does that look like? I had this amazing mentor who told me once this incredible line that I thought of every day since then, which is, what you appreciate appreciates. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's
I love
I think
that.
it's very true. Like, what you put
Yes.
energy into grows. And a different mentor at the same time said, what would happen if you dedicated, concentrated time for a long period of time on your goals and what you want to achieve? And that was really the idea of the community on Sidebar, which is, how do you take the growth mindset? How do you take the structure to really be able to put a lot of energy into your goals over a long period of time and really concentrate them? And like, what would be the limit of what you can achieve? And it's like, it's limitless. And so I think that
Yeah.
that's a theme that I see across all of the communities, is the structure that allows like-minded people to really pursue their passion.
Exactly. And from what I'm hearing you say, it's almost like peer support or group accountability and even showing up for other people in the beginning eventually primes your own mind to build better habits and become more growth oriented. Like in the case of your own dad, he showed up for 4 years.
Yeah, and like his muscle of showing up is so strong that like that changed
Amazing.
how he shows up in the world, just
Yeah.
individually, sort of thing. And
That's
I
like a
think
life case study.
it's a life thing, and it's over, again, that long period time horizon, right? Because like his commitment was so long that it had such a huge impact on his life. And maybe on a year to year, it's hard to see the delta, but over a 40-year time horizon, he's a different human being,
Yeah.
in such a positive way. And so I think that that really interests me. That really interests me because, why are we here ultimately? My mission, my why is, I want to be part of a team that makes a positive difference in a billion people's lives. Like, that's why I work. It's just like, it's what I go to bed thinking about. It's what I wake up thinking about. It's when we're surfing. That's what we're thinking about. Is like, I want to just leave the world in a slightly better place. It doesn't have to be written across the sky. It just has to be, consistent, helping people feel more empowered, or more confident or see more of their brilliance just on a day-to-day
And more
basis.
supported
And more
more than
supported,
anything, right?
exactly. And that's what we
Yeah.
believe at Sidebar. Sidebar, we want you to be as successful as you can be. We want your careers to accelerate so fast. And we believe that the construct of this personal board of directors, this 8 or 10 people, is just critical because you meet twice a month and you see real results in your career. And I think that that's what really matters, is just the real result.
Such powerful stuff, honestly. And it's pretty clear that connection is also an underlying value of Sidebar. What do you think is the biggest obstacle to connection in our current landscape today?
It's a really good question. I mean, I think it goes back to that amazing piece of advice I got, right? Which is what you appreciate appreciates. There's just so many ways for us to spend our time on a day-to-day basis, sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
there's just so many pulls on one's focus and one's time. I think that there are, we have our jobs and our lives and our phones and
We're
and
very
all the
distracted as
entertainment.
well. We're extremely distracted with
Yeah,
how we live our
there's
lives.
like a million things to go do. And so,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. Like I think about this a lot on airplanes. When you're on
Mhm.
airplanes with no Wi-Fi, right? Like what happens usually on an airplane with no Wi-Fi is like usually like I find I make a new friend, right? Like I'll sit next to
Yeah.
someone, I'll talk to them, or I'll have a thought I've never thought of before. Like there just is a bit of space in order
Yeah.
to connect, and whether that's connecting to how I think about the world or whether that's connecting to a new person, there just is a little bit of space in order to connect. There's like a dedicated space in order to do so. And I think that that's one of the things that's really hard, is like in our lives that are so busy, like where are those dedicated spaces to appreciate what we appreciate, right? Like
Yes.
how do we
Yes.
focus on it? If our lives were a business, we would measure our metrics and have a business review, which is like a dedicated space to focus on improving that sort of thing. Like, where's our dedicated space in our lives to just take time for us to be like,
Mm.
how do we want to grow? And that was really important for
Mm.
us in Sidebar because that space matters. Like another really interesting thing is research tells us that small group coaching creates these safe spaces for us where peers can grow, have accountability, and take risks. It's like it's a competitive advantage for so many people to have the space. And when we were
100%.
first starting Sidebar, we asked all of our members, how do you describe what this is? And invariably, the vast majority of people came back and were like, it's a space, right? It's a space. And this concept of space is really interesting. It's like
Yeah.
being on the airplane with no Wi-Fi. It's like, surfing when you don't have your phone with you. It's the space to just appreciate what you appreciate and to really focus on you. And I think that is what's really tricky about today, is how do we build these spaces in? And that's why I think, the return on investment like this is so high, because when you have a focused space, you could just accelerate really, really fast.
I mean, you can just be yourself. You can express your vulnerabilities, your inhibitions,
Totally.
because as it is, leadership is a very lonely and confronting journey. So I love like the fact that you get this space and platform and access to connect with other fellow leaders and just vent or just talk and share ideas and create inspiration to make changes in the world. Or yeah.
So there's this I love what you said. There's this concept that I think is really interesting and really important, which is like there's two concepts really that I think a lot as a CEO. And one is play, and one is this concept of like you're not your ideas. And so I think, to your point, what Sidebar allows you to do as a leader, because it is very lonely, is play, right? Share an idea you've never thought of before. Like share something where like, this has been going on my mind, and like maybe there's something there, or this has been going on mine and maybe it's dragging me down a bit. Like, what do you think? And it's not even like I feel super strongly about this thing. It's not necessarily a part of my identity. It can be, but it just allows us to be curious and playful and have space to practice. The very definition of Sidebar is super interesting. It's this conversation, and there's a lot of definitions for it. But in a legal term, it's this conversation that the lawyers have with the judge that's kind of off to the side. They kind of take a pause and they have a conversation, and they come back and like the court kind of resumes, right? Like the sidebar in a news article is like this thing off to the side that's like where you get some more information and then you go back to reading the article, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
so I think there's this really interesting concept of Sidebar is where as leaders, we get to have these thoughts, we get to practice, we get to explore in this really safe space. So then when we go talk to our teams and we go back in and we go pause and everything starts again, we have this confidence. We already have a plan. We know what we're doing,
Sure.
and it's a superpower.
Sure. Oh, it sure is. And you've worked at Meta for as long as 5 years, with, of course, access to the most inspiring people. What do you think offers a higher scope for learning? Working in the corporate space with really inspiring people or starting your own business as an entrepreneur?
I think in some ways it's like comparing roses, right? You can't really compare
Yeah.
them. They're
Yeah.
both brilliant and
Yeah.
wonderful, sort of thing.
Yeah.
They just have their own distinct experience, And I think that I'm someone who wants to learn as fast as possible,
Yeah.
and I think you can learn really fast in both. It just depends on exactly what you're trying to learn. And so
Mm.
let me
Love
kind of
that.
walk through some examples, right? So I worked in I worked in startups before I went to Facebook, and then I started a company. So let me kind of explain the different lessons. So when I first worked in startups right out of school, I thought what was so brilliant about it is that I got to do every role. So here I was, this person who was really early in my career, um, really ambitious, but didn't really know anything, right? And just wanted to grow and learn as fast as I can and get 10,000 hours as quickly as possible. So a startup was really, especially at building product, a startup was really helpful getting 10,000 hours really fast because there was no one else to do the things. So they're like, you should go do this well before I was probably qualified in order to do so, sort of thing. And so it was awesome from a breadth perspective, from like a fundamentals perspective. It was incredible experience because I just I got to 10,000 hours way faster than I could have imagined because I just was in the room where all the things were like happening and figuring out because they were these small companies and we were just trying to figure it out. And so I loved it. Like I wouldn't trade it for anything. I also got incredible mentorship, like across that from just people who were really good at getting things done. So like really good at starting companies. Like they just had such tremendous grit. And so what an
Wow.
incredible thing to learn from people who are so intense and just want to win, but hold it lightly. So that was an incredible lesson for me. Equally, I had so many friends who started at big companies and they were incredible. Like they were on these rocket ships. They learned so much. They were like doing a new job every year. Their teams were growing. They were learning so quickly. When I went to Facebook, I was so grateful because, I didn't really know how to run a meeting. Like I didn't really know I'd never done a PowerPoint presentation or a presentation. Like I didn't know how to end a meeting on time. I didn't know how to lead, 30 people in a room. Like I'd never been a product manager, although I got hired as a product manager. And so I got to learn so much of the fundamentals of just how to execute really, really well. So I was able to kind of combine my resourcefulness and my grit and the ability to kind of like have these lightning strikes, having 10,000 hours of product building with this incredible ability to just understand how to run a team, how to lead, how to just help everyone move faster. Like that combination was incredible. Like I wouldn't have, like Facebook was an amazing place to work and it was just growing so fast and we were learning so much and the caliber of people was incredible. And so it just was so energizing. Like in a bigger company, you see these people who are just so good at what they do. And you're just like pattern matching and watching and being like, wow, this person's world class. Like I want to figure that out. I want to learn that. I want to learn that skill. So I felt like the skill development at a larger company was so high because you're able to watch the best of the best people in the world do it and then be like, oh, I'm going to go practice that and I'm going to go learn. I think starting a company, what's so interesting is you try and take the best parts of both, but there's no infrastructure in place. And you realize, oh, they have like a lot of years of infrastructure to help everyone go that quickly. And so it combines that resourcefulness from that is really honed at working in a small company with that like deep focus that comes from working at a really well executing a large company sort of thing. And so you kind of get the best of both worlds. I wouldn't have it any other way. I feel like if I was only in startups, I would have a certain skill set. And if I'd only worked at large companies, I would have a certain skill set. So the combination of both was a really special experience.
Yeah, aren't you lucky to have both? Amazing.
It's just
Really good
lucky.
stuff.
It's just pure luck. It
Yeah,
was unearned. I just got very lucky.
true. And here's a bit of ritual question now. How would you describe an epic being?
I think an epic being has like this incredible curiosity, right? Sort of
Mm,
thing. And I think that like it just leads with this curiosity where you can kind of feel the energy around them and they're just like awake to the magic of the day to day of life sort of thing. And they're just like, wow, like I'm so interested in that, or that's really interesting, or I really want to hear more about you, or wow, this was like a pretty incredible experience. Like if I look at all my epic beings I've met in life, and there's so many of them, I'm so blessed to meet
yeah,
people like that. They just have this intense desire to grow and
true.
learn and be different than they were today in any kind of way, right? Sort of thing. And through any kind of medium, like there's like it can happen in all these ways, but there's just a tense desire to engage with their surroundings. And I think that
Yeah,
that's my definition is like, people where they're just alive to the world that's around them.
could not agree more. So well said. I love that.
Yeah,
And it
and
was
you can
such a
kind of
blast
tell,
to
right, when
see.
you meet someone and you're just like, wait, like, and we could be tired or we could be busy or we could be distracted on the phone, and then you meet an epic being and you're like, you can't be those things anymore because like
You're just
their energy,
alive.
yeah, their aliveness brings us alive. And I just think that there's
Exactly.
nothing quite like that. And you see it in people of all ages. You see it from people who are 2 to like 88, sort of thing, but they're just epic. They're just like, oh, I want to
Yeah.
be more like this. It's inspiring.
Well, thank you for bringing your energy on your aliveness and your inspiration in this conversation. It was such a blast talking to you, honestly. Really appreciate your time and your presence, Lexi. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so amazing to be here and to learn from you. And I just think that when I think of an epic being, like you're certainly it. So I'm really honored
Oh,
to share this time with you.
thanks so much. And if you want to find out more about you or Sidebar, where should they reach out to you? Like LinkedIn or
Yeah,
where?
LinkedIn, please. Just Lexy Franklin at LinkedIn. Also, everyone should go to sidebar.com. We're really, really excited. We hope that everyone please checks out Sidebar. And yeah, I would love to connect with everyone. And our real focus is to help everyone accelerate in their careers. So if everyone or anyone's
Yay.
interested in that, we want to talk to you.